I like to put in this little real world fact. You know, power surges when women hit their mental pause, as people like to say. Just joking, I mean menopause. When you stop having your period, what happens is that you actually lose a method of detoxification, which was your period. So the body looks for another way to get the toxins out, especially if you have blocked up elimination pathways. So hot flashes are truly a way that the body removes out toxicity. Those power surges do really have purpose. Now, this is an interesting study that discussed how women who have hot flashes tend to have a least likely incidence of cancer, of breast cancer. Now, this is true in patients who or people who don't have naturopathic doctors, or in people who aren't working at optimizing all their elimination pathways. Because if you're doing things to help your liver and your bowels eliminate, if you're sweating more, if you're doing deep breathing exercises, if your urine is alkaline, all these methods truly help to eliminate out toxins out of your body. You're less likely to have hot flashes, less likely to have secondary occurrences of cancer or occurrences of cancer at all. So very interesting that hot flashes in certain population will help them to reduce the risk of cancer because it's a form of detoxification. The other reason why sweating is so important is because toxins are stored in the fat. So remember, the fat layer is very close to the skin, and so the more that you sweat, the more that you break down fat, and the more that you will eliminate out toxins. Very incredible. Step 2 in our flow sequence is to soak and saturate. What do we soak and saturate with? Well, very simply, water. Water is known as the universal solvent, and water helps to break down all stains and remove all things that are impure. So your body eliminates via water through breathing, through your stools, through the sweat, and through the urine. So it's important to be taking in a considerable amount of fluids and healthy water on a regular basis. Of course, our favorite is a reverse osmosis variety. If you are to test your water using something called a total dissolved solids meter, you can actually see that a reverse osmosis water will contain very little solids. It could be somewhere in between of 0 to 50. 50 would be meaning that you would require a change in your filter, but our water, as an example, at the clinic is about a 9. So that means it's a very healthy and low of solids. Now, if you are to test, say, a red wine, perhaps, red wine would have somewhere around 1,200 solids in it. And that's because it's highly concentrated. Not that red wine is all necessarily bad, not something that you would consume definitely on a cleanse, but later it's a health promoting drink. However, you want a water or a fluid that is going to have the least amount of solids in it so that it can serve as a vehicle to eliminate out toxins. So we recommend reverse osmosis water. We also recommend green tea to be drinking during the day before 3 to 4 p.m. because green tea is one of those herbs that has a significant amount of benefit to the human body. It helps with healing up the gut lining. It helps with detoxification in the liver. It's an anti-carcinogenic, which means that it prevents your chance of ever having to get a chemotherapy. It truly is a wonder herb, and green tea is probably one of the most researched herbs on PubMed. So I really want to encourage you to drink green tea and to try different varieties and find one that's right for you. I know at the clinic we have some really good varieties. Mango green tea is delicious. We have mint green tea, regular estate green tea, and all loose leaf because we want it to be as healthy as possible and as fresh as possible because it is a herb. And tea bags tend to be stored for a very, very long time, and loose leaf tends to be quite good. You also want to check that it's organic because you don't want extra contaminants in your tea. After green tea, we recommend Rooibos tea to be drank in the evening. Rooibos red Bushmaster tea, beautiful red color. Sometimes it's green if it hasn't been put in the sun. And this Rooibos tea is very good at enhancing your glutathione status. Glutathione is that amazing molecule in your body that helps with detoxification and cleansing. Super important. And so many of us are so deficient in glutathione. And the problem with it is that glutathione is hard to get from food sources. The only place that you can get it from is whey protein. But we know that whey protein is no good. We say no way to whey because whey is made from dairy. And for many people that can cause a dairy type food sensitivity reaction, which we'll get into a little bit. So what you want to focus on is the rooibos tea because that really helps to improve your glutathione status. So drink it 4 p.m. onwards, and it's equivalent to water because it has no caffeine effect like green tea does. Oh, and by the way, a little note about green tea. Just because it has caffeine doesn't mean it's going to harm you. Coffee has an incredible amount of caffeine in it, and this is one of the reasons why we say no caffeine during your cleanse and no coffee. But green tea may have caffeine. However, the caffeine level is a lot lower, and it's balanced by an incredible molecule known as L-theanine. This phytochemical, L-theanine, actually helps to reduce the cortisol effect because it calms the system and the nervous system down. It's used as an anti-anxiety and therefore negates the caffeine effect of green tea. How fantastic. So on top of these reverse osmosis water, the green tea, the rooibos, we also want you to be consuming things that have alkalinizing electrolytes. Because when you have a good amount of electrolytes in your body, like magnesium, potassium, calcium, they need to be obviously in a good balance for health. Something like in our Alka Practice supplement. What this does is this actually helps to accentuate sweating, but also helps to alkalinize the urine, which is a way that we help to eliminate out toxins. The more alkaline your urine is, the more elimination of toxins you will have in your body. Then we also enjoy colon hydrotherapy because colon hydrotherapy, what it'll do is it hydrates the colon. And by hydrating the colon, you help to clean up what is stuck within the intestine, but you also hydrate the entire body. So it's a great way to really get those toxins flowing out of the system. This is a great little study I love to put in a cleanse study just to tease you in a cleanse conference because it's interesting. Post-cleanse, you'll also have to know what to do to be as healthy as possible. So it's neat to see that green tea, if you add it with your vodka or with an alcoholic beverage, will actually help to reduce the load of toxicity that the alcohol had on your body. Great. That's a cool little tip for the summertime. Perhaps you can make a vodka green tea iced tea. Would be awesome. Keep that sugar down and use stevia instead. Next part in the flow is the stools. Come check these out, stools. We want your stools to be fabulous, and you must be going to the bathroom properly. Now, since the bowels are a major cleansing pathway for your body, we want you to avoid having all those nasty symptoms when your bowels aren't working well, like bloating, color, gas, a lot of hyper wiping and pain. There's a difference in what we want you to have in terms of sensational sliders or super sad stools, right? Sad stools are of the variety where, you might be hyper wiping. There might be extra mucus in your stools and inflammation. You should not have to hyper wipe. You truly should only wipe your bum once, and the paper should be completely clean. If you think of indigenous cultures, what happens to them is they're walking out in the forest and they squat and then they pop a poop. And what happens with them? They don't wipe their bum because they don't have to. They walk away. They're eating an indigenous diet that doesn't cause them inflammation, and likely their gut bacteria is quite well balanced as well too. That is until they get introduced to a standard American diet with fast and processed foods. Another key sign is skid marks in the toilet bowl. That typically is also a sign of mucus in your stools. Stools that may be floating, that means you may not be absorbing your fat very properly. You don't want thin breakfast sausage-like stools because that's a sign that A, you're very stressed and then therefore the lower sphincter is overly tight, or perhaps it could be a bigger problem than that and you need to see a practitioner. If your stools are breaking on impact, they could be just transiting too quickly through your intestine, and when that happens, then there can be problems that are further translated in different ways. What you're looking for is a gold standard of sensational sliders, and those are typically at least 12 inches long. Now, if you take from your elbow to the tips of your fingers of your left hand, if you take your elbow and put it in your rib cage and then bring your arm downwards all the way to your privates, your hand should be covering your privates. That's the length of your lower lower intestine. And this intestine, that's the food that you ate 24 hours prior, lower descending colon. And now that's what you should be eliminating in a day, is exactly 12 inches long. Now, it need not matter the denomination. It could be 3-4 inches or 4-3 inches. No big deal. As long as it's not more than 3 to 4 times per day, because then you could be having the opposite problem. You want it to be nice, thick shaped, like a sausage, S-shaped, solid and thick. And of course, you really truly should be wiping clean. It should be the color of dirt, and it should definitely sink, and it shouldn't be too stinky either. The stinkier your stools are, the worse your body is. So those are the goals that you're looking to find, right? You want to check out this checklist. What's a sensational slider? Where are you at? Or do you have super sad stools? See where you're at. How to get healthy stools? They require a variety of different things to improve them. There's bacteria, bile, fiber, stomach acid, and movement. What's really important to help with the stools are things like bitter foods. Bitter foods can truly help with not only increasing your salivation in your mouth, and that helps to break down the carbohydrates, because it helps with saliva contains alpha amylase, which is a digestive enzyme for your carbohydrates. But it also helps to increase the amount of stomach acid that you have, so therefore you start to break down more your proteins. And bitter foods also have an added bonus of helping you to dump your bile. When you dump your bile, you actually stimulate what's called peristalsis down the intestine. I like to think of peristalsis like your hand movement in the chicken dance. Na 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 na. So that is the gut movements, the gut contracting and expanding, basically helping the gut to digest and absorb and move the food and move it down the intestinal tract. Peristalsis, that's called. So bile is a big signal for peristalsis. Bile also works in conjunction with bacteria to either help heal your gut lining or harm your gut lining. How does that work, Dr. Marisol? Well, let me tell you. Bacteria, if you have good bacteria in your intestine, and it can take as little as 24 hours to change your bacteria from bad, obnoxious bacteria to good and healthy bacteria, as little as 24 hours of changing your diet into a healthy diet, like the healthy diet you'll be doing during your cleanse. Now, when the gut bacteria is bad and the bile is dumped into the intestine, what happens is the bad bacteria will convert these bile acids and create them into a nauseating substance. This nauseating substance is damaging for the intestine. However, if you're taking good probiotics, if you're like gut toned or tummy toned, or you're eating a healthy diet and taking probiotics, what happens is that you will have more of a healthy gut bacteria. And these healthy gut bacteria will take the bile, convert it into a healthy substance for the intestine that is actually healing for the entire gut lining. Super, super important. Now, some key signs that you may be deficient in stomach acid to digest your protein is that you could be having some super stinky, smelly farts. Smelly farts are a sign that you're not digesting your protein properly and could likely have low stomach acid. Or you could be incredibly stressed when you're eating, which would mean that your stomach acid would be low, right? So that's another key point. Movement also helps you to move your stools, right? And by moving, exercise, that also helps your gut, your intestine to do the happy chicken dance and get that peristalsis moving down your intestine. We love colon hydrotherapy because it simply does more than just hydrate the colon, but it actually helps to clean up that intestine. No different than you take a shower every single day. It's important every once in a while to do a colon hydrotherapy so that your intestine can get washed and clean, and you can start from scratch and new and wash that colon and help to repopulate a good gut bacteria. Now, people always ask us, do you lose your electrolytes or do you lose all your gut bacteria when you do a colon hydrotherapy? A portion of the gut bacteria, and typically that's gut bacteria that isn't very healthy, will be washed and will be changed from doing a colon hydrotherapy treatment. But this is one of the reasons why we recommend the day before, the day of, and the day after of doing a colon hydrotherapy, it's important to double up on your probiotic. That way you're setting yourself up right to get a great therapy and to really get a cleaning of the intestine, but also to get a repopulation with good, healthy gut bacteria. How amazing. Great. So to sum up, that sums up your flow. There's the sweat we covered, the soak and saturate with that awesome, wondrous water. And then, of course, those stools need to be in good working order for you to have good health.